NBA Domination begins. Logan unlocks full-level Aomine Daiki skills. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 131. Oh my god, the entire Los Angeles Lakers home audience was stunned. Logan, actually knocked by LeBron James. At this moment, the Great Wall in their minds completely collapsed. It turned out that once LeBron James showed his true ability, Logan would still be a little inferior. At the moment, in ESPN's live broadcast room, Charles Barkley can be described as full of spirit, constantly pointing out the country. Charles Barkley said triumphantly. When LeBron James got serious, Logan had to back off. Shaq O'Neal watched Logan's footsteps and suddenly said, "You didn't see anything wrong?" "Nothing." Charles Barkley said, "What could be wrong?" Shaq O'Neal sneered, thinking you had been retiring for too long and had lost your vigilance. And, after all, you're not the kind of superpowered center who can knock people away with one step. Shaq O'Neal himself belongs to the same domineering type as LeBron James, and his reactions to opponents when defending themselves have long been in their chests. If Logan really can't resist the violence of LeBron James, he should retreat while fighting, a few small steps, and then stagger back to the inside line, which is what Logan should perform. After all, Logan's strength, Shaq O'Neal knows, although he is only a defender, but in the front field, he can play. Dwight Howard is terrible. Even though Dwight Howard is now a half-old and sick man, it is not something that ordinary guards can play. Logan's performance reminds Shaq O'Neal of a legendary figure. This character, after the injury of the top 5 centers in history, was in danger, changed to playing center. The first time he played center, he won a 30-plus triple-double, leading the team to win the championship. Thinking of this person, Shaq O'Neal couldn't help but tremble in his heart. This man is no ordinary person. In the league, there is a saying of the demon god Buddha Shark King, of which the big shark Shaq O'Neal is only the last place. This person's ranking, however, is in historical standing, above himself, and may even be above the basketball god Michael Jordan. Could it be that Logan had grown to the point of that man? In addition to Shaq O'Neal, there is another person who is concerned about Logan. In the broadcast room of the Dragon Kingdom, Jean Lizzie immediately frowned and said, "The tank-like breakthrough of LeBron James is really not to be underestimated." Scott Pippen was smiling from the sidelines, and of course he knew what Jean Lilly was worried about. He feared that Logan would be greatly embarrassed by the frontal confrontation with LeBron James. At this time, it is necessary for an expert figure like Scott Pippen to solve problems for Jean Lilly's guidance. You know, Scott Pippen is a small forward of the historical level, and when LeBron James turned out, everyone recognized that Scott Pippen was the first organizational small forward in history. He also saw at a glance that this breakthrough of LeBron James was a little wrong. "Don't worry." Scott Pippen laughed and said, "Logan, you are deliberately pulling LeBron James into a trap." "It's a trap." Scott Pippen muttered, "It's a trap." As soon as he heard these words, Jean Lizzie immediately became excited and asked, "What do you mean? What do you mean by this?" "It's simple." Scott Pippen explains, a point guard, the position where he most reasonably allocates the ball should be on the outside, and the best position is at the top of the arc, where he can pass the ball in either direction. That's right, the best place for a point guard is to start organizing at the top of the three-point arc. Whether it's Chris Paul, Steve Nash, or Rajon Rondo, that's the case. Because in this position, the view is the widest, and the line of passing is the most abundant, it is the first choice for all the top defenders. Jean reasonable guidance does not stop nodding, which is equivalent to basic common sense things. Jean reasonable guidance is still understood. But at this moment, Scott Pippen sneered, "Let me assert that LeBron James has not been able to break through." Sure enough, LeBron James's move was as Scott Pippen had expected. He did break through Logan, but only the first step broke through Logan, and at that time, LeBron James felt that the breakthrough was very easy, and his feeling was that the Great Wall of Heaven had fallen apart under his strong impact. All the Cleveland Cavaliers players, of course, rejoiced, applauded LeBron James' performance. It turned out that there was nothing remarkable about Logan. They had seen Logan play against the Atlanta Hawks and directly beat Dwight Howard, the league's first center who claimed to be able to replace LeBron James, at the peak of the year. Then against the Sacramento Kings, the league's first center, DeMarcus Cousins, had no advantage over Logan, who was a head shorter than him. Logan, the new magician, this is the league's expectation of Logan. They expect him to become a magician Larvin John signal level figure, no Larvin John news, but it is a man who claims to be able to play 5 positions. But now in the eyes of the Cleveland Cavaliers players, it turns out that Logan is also a figure under the false name. Previously, just because he had not met a strong opponent, Dwight Howard had long since reached the top, and DeMarcus Cousins was a state player, and there was no state in a game. Encountering LeBron James, who was in stable shape and more powerful, Logan was immediately exposed. Today, there is only one person on the court who doesn't think so, and that's LeBron James himself. The first step breakthrough is indeed very easy, but unfortunately, it is only the first step. When he broke through the second step, he immediately felt that Logan's strength had suddenly increased several times, and the Great Wall of the Heavenly Dynasty, which should have been falling apart, was suddenly rebuilt in an instant. LeBron James, however, sensed that something was wrong, and immediately tightened his muscles again, strengthening his breakthrough strength several times. However, there was still no way to break through this Heavenly Dynasty Great Wall, and after the first breakthrough, the decaying soil skin on the surface of the Heavenly Dynasty Great Wall fell down, making people mistakenly think that this Great Wall was about to collapse. But now, when the adobe has all fallen, everyone finds that under the decaying adobe, there are pieces of hard, shiny steel, which is really terrible. Episode 132, LeBron James, although he also found that something was wrong, temporarily increased his strength several times, but he still could not break through even one step. Scott Pippen stared brightly. This is the trap under Logan Boo, to besiege the beast of LeBron James. If Logan completely isolates LeBron James from the outside line, with the ability of LeBron James, even if he can't break through, he will not have the opportunity to shoot a three-pointer, or he can pass the ball out in a timely manner. Even if it can't be passed directly to Jimmy Butler can take the initiative to come and mediate and use himself as Drummond Green. This is the advantage that a team has two organizational figures, and if the other party has only one strong point, it will never be able to control the operation of your entire team. Just like the Philadelphia 76 and Los Angeles Lakers finals that year, Kobe Bryant was almost completely blown up in the confrontation with Allen Iverson. But the Philadelphia 76ers had no one to hold back Shaq O'Neal, so they lost the game. Want to rely on your teammates? At present, Logan's teammates have not grown to the point where he can rely on them. The likes of D'Angelo Russell and Larry Nance Jr. are still too young to cut off LeBron James' passing route, but it's not so easy. You say you want to defend LeBron James is dripping on the outside, even the ball cannot be passed out? Logan said that in the two-dimensional comics, only Akashi Shinjiro alone can do it, or rely on his Heavenly Emperor's Eye, and now, Logan has not opened the system of the Heavenly Emperor's Eye. So, Logan deliberately led LeBron James one step outside the three-point line, and within this range, LeBron James's passing route instantly became narrow. LeBron James wants to risk a straight pass, which is likely to be truncated by a crowded interior line. After all, the activity space of the inner line is too small and too small. LeBron James, there's always no way to get out of the curved ball or something. Logan himself laughed at the thought of this. Even in Kuriko's basketball, there is no way to pass out such a thing as a large-scale curved ball. LeBron James, who was also very alert, immediately found himself in the trap, and he was immediately ready to take a step back and retreat to the outside to organize the attack. However, the moment LeBron James stepped back, suddenly his hands were empty, and Logan had taken this opportunity to steal the ball from LeBron James's hand. Logan has been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. The Emperor's steadiness and sense of rhythm made it difficult to break the Emperor's ball even if he was as strong as Logan. But this is only when the Emperor LeBron James maintains a certain rhythm. However, the rhythm of this thing is likely to be disrupted by the opponent and forced to switch. That's right, it's the moment when LeBron James changes the pace of the attack that is the easiest time to break his ball. LeBron James was so embarrassed that as the commander of the Cleveland Cavaliers, he was actually broken by Logan. No, not only that, but with the breaking of the ball by LeBron James, the rhythm of all the players of the Cleveland Cavaliers has been disrupted, and now they are panicked like a mess of sand. In the studio, seeing LeBron James being broken, Shaq O'Neal laughed and leaned forward and back. Charles Barkley was ugly looking, and when LeBron James had successfully broken through, he had blown a wave of LeBron James. Now that the words had not fallen, LeBron James broke through and lost the ball directly to Logan. LeBron James's technical statistics have one more mistake, which is simply a naked drop in the face of Charles Barkley. Shaq O'Neal was of course laughing and happy to see this, and the more Charles Barkley fought, the happier his heart became. After laughing for a while, Shaq O'Neal said to Charles Barkley, "You see, I have long said that after this game, I will not know whose head the Emperor's scepter is worn." Charles Barkley's face was livid, and he thought that you really had a hand in falling into the well. "No, I can't just fall down here." Charles Barkley coughed and retorted vigorously, "It's just a broken ball, a mistake, what can I say? Even Michael Jordan will have mistakes, there will be times when he is not in good shape, don't forget, he lost MVP twice, one of which was to lose to me." Shaq O'Neal listened, and his forehead was full of green tendons. The most criticized thing about Shaq O'Neal's life is that he has only one MVP in his career. In the legendary Demon God Buddha Shark Emperor, Michael Jordan is invincible in the world with 5 MVPs, after all, is he a recognized basketball god? Magician Larvin Johnson is still 3 MVPs in hand after retiring early. Emperor LeBron James has a career of 4 MVP in Rogan's historical line, and in this historical line, the Emperor's career is still on the rise. Stone Buddha Tim Duncan has always had a low-key style of play, pays attention to the overall style of play, and also has 2 MVPs in hand. Instead, the blown jingle big shark Shaq O'Neal, who has only 1 MVP in his career, is actually difficult to live up to under the fame. Shaq O'Neal listened to what Charles Buckley had just said, and he almost had 100,000 drafts in his heart. You're mocking me in a different way, and you're showing off a wave of yourself, saying that you once pressured Michael Jordan to get MVP, and I, Shaq O'Neal, wasn't it? Yes. Charles Barkley, you wait for me. In fact, when Charles Buckley said this, his heart was really extremely weak, and he was greatly relieved to see Shaq O'Neal's face turn blue, which was a great relief to pull Shaq O'Neal away from this topic. Charles Barkley had already seen that LeBron James was completely at a disadvantage in his confrontation with Logan. LeBron James's best violent breakthrough is that he can't break through Rogan's defense at all, not even a single hair of Rogan's sweat can shake. Rogan's solid defense, like a great wall that took root in place, completely suppressed all of LeBron James' ways of breaking through. At this moment, Logan has been like a whirlwind, galloping towards the other half, but to Rogan's surprise, in front of him, there are actually 4 Los Angeles Lakers players defending themselves. Episode 133, even Logan couldn't help but be stunned. Interesting, he also thought that the Los Angeles Lakers could not form a defensive formation, but at the moment, there were still 4 Los Angeles Lakers players defending themselves. The 4 defenders were defending themselves, illustrating a problem. That is, as early as when LeBron James broke through in the second step, someone found that LeBron James's attack could not have a result, and there may be a risk of being broken, and immediately beckoned the other 4 players to immediately return to the defense together in order to block Logan. Logan laughed. This man is a little unusual. This ability to organize the defense shows that, first, this commander, like LeBron James, has the ability to anticipate the game. He knew from the beginning that the ball might be lost by LeBron James, and from the beginning he organized everyone to defend in advance, with organizing Logan as the highest priority. Second, this man was still very authoritative among the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he was able to command Junior Smith, Tristan Thompson, and Kevin Love. You know, when you react in this way, you are openly telling everyone that LeBron James is going to lose the ball, and you should quickly listen to my command and make amends. My God, you know that Junior Smith, Tristan Thompson, and Kevin Love, these people are all loyal subordinates of LeBron James, and you tell them that LeBron James is going to lose the ball. Listen to me, they didn't beat you badly, where will they listen to you? But at the moment, Junior Smith, Tristan Thompson, and Kevin Love are really the only people who are leading the way, and the power of this person is certainly not small. This man is undoubtedly the new team number 2 leader, Jimmy Butler. Logan laughed, and it seemed that his crossing had brought about some different changes. Rogan, also a fan of fantasy novels. He has read more than once in the novel that when the crosser travels to the past, because the crosser has knowledge from the future, the crosser has a great advantage over other characters in this plane. At this time, the plane will take the initiative to adjust something to interfere with the crosser and prevent him from easily winning victory and honor, which is also known as the butterfly effect. For example, James Harden originally relied on free throws to eat porcelain in this era, but James Harden in this position has begun to practice back-footed three-pointers. For example, LeBron James would have stabilized his shooting until 2020, but in this historical line, LeBron James's shooting has improved greatly. Also, with Kawhi Leonard's injury healed and likely to be coming back early, there seems to be a deal brewing on the side of the San Antonio Spurs. In addition, Jimmy Butler has grown very quickly, and has approached the level of the single-core team in Rogan's history line to lead a bunch of old, sick, and disabled Miami Heat to the finals. Another change at this point is that LeBron James is clearly starting to delegate power to Jimmy Butler, who would not have done such a thing in Logan's history line. You know, LeBron James is a selfish man who sleeps next to the bed. Logan laughed. He didn't know if there really was such a thing as a plain will, but the butterfly effect was happening, and a lot of impossible things were happening. However, there is nothing strange about it. Even the system in the manga has appeared, and I am really using the two-dimensional ability that is only available in the comic, and even this kind of thing has happened, and you say that there are still things that will not happen. Rogan's footsteps did not stop for a moment, and because the other 4 were already in line, he stopped and waited for his teammates to help him. He was ready to break through the other 4 in one breath, because he saw out of the corner of his eye that Larry Nance Jr. and D'Angelo Russell were already very powerful, and they tried to block the return of LeBron James. And he absolutely believes that he has the strength to do it. You know, he is now driving the zone of Qingfeng Dahue. In the manga, after Qingfeng Dahue opened the zone, but the once-beaten Kuroko Tetsuya and the Vulcan Dame Makoto were very embarrassed. Whether it was Kuroko Tetsuya or Vulcan Dei, they were all taken by Qingfeng Daihui. How can the four defensive players in front of him now be compared with the double protagonists of Qinglin High School? This is one, even the protagonist has no way to use his skills. And in the comic, Aomine Daiki is not the protagonist, and still successfully steals the limelight of the protagonist. And now I am the protagonist. Logan sneered, his eyes exploded, and his eyes widened to the limit. In the distance, LeBron James suddenly had a Cold War, and he seemed to see the illusion he had just seen, and Logan's whole body was filled with mysterious auras. And right now, in the stands, a few more people are watching Logan's Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James' Cleveland Cavaliers. Their outfits are mysterious, they are all wearing large trench coats, hiding their faces, and they don't seem to want to be photographed by the cameras present, and they have been here. One of the skinny men suddenly shook his whole body and murmured, "My God, it's perfect, Clay, do you see that? What's wrong, Steven?" His companion was stunned, "I didn't see anything, and also, what is seamless?" These two people, actually the Splash Brothers of the Golden State Warriors, Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, also came to the scene today, because the Golden State Warriors did not play today. Well, nothing. Stephen Curry casually disguised the past. Most likely it's something strange in the comics he reads. The tall man next to him laughed and said that this person was Durant, the god of death who defected to the enemy to the 73 Victory Warrior. Kevin? Stephen Curry asked, "Did you see something, or feel something strange?" "Nothing." Kevin Durant said, "It's Logan's momentum, it's really a little different, it looks extra confident, and the speed of action is also obviously rising." "Sure enough." Stephen Curry whispered, "You can't see the extension of immortal wire, yuck." Kevin Durant ignores Stephen Curry, "This guy is nagging some weird stuff again, it must be a lot of comic strips." Stephen Curry also stopped talking, thinking, no matter what, LeBron James should be able to see. Episode 134, and at the moment, Logan is on the field, killing a special kill. As soon as the zone opened, even though the four defenders on the opposite side couldn't see the zone, they could clearly feel that Logan's momentum had completely changed. Just now, Logan, like a lion who walks slowly and slowly, embodies the majesty of the king. However, today's Logan is no longer a slowly strolling lion, he is a super male lion that is roaring and running at high speed. Junior Smith, the closest to Logan, only felt a chill on his back and could barely form a defensive move. Only to see Logan suddenly move his shoulders and start his breakthrough performance, aiming to pass through 4 people in a row. As his shoulders shrugged, Junior Smith hallucinated that a male lion roared at him with its teeth and claws, frightening Junior Smith to the point of almost falling to his knees. Logan sped up suddenly, a straight line break, directly using speed to force a breakthrough through Junior Smith, who was blocking his front. There is no fancy thing about this action, that is, simply using speed to break through in a straight line and eat the opponent with speed. When Junior Smith was young, he was also a strong physical player and moved very fast. When he also came to the CBA of the Dragon Kingdom to play, averaging more than 50 points per game is like probing for things. After all, Junior Smith is also an NBA championship level starter, so what's so hard about scoring more than 50 points in the Dragon League? But even the young Junior Smith couldn't withstand Logan's straight line impact at all. Not to mention that now that he was old, where could he withstand Logan's straight-line breakthrough? He didn't even see Logan's speed, and as soon as he saw a flower, Logan had already broken through in a straight line. Even after Logan broke through directly, Junior Smith instinctively made a defensive move, but it was too late. Logan unceremoniously broke through Junior Smith, the pace was not stopped for a moment, and he accelerated forward again, this time facing Kevin Love. Kevin Love tried to open his hands and feet as much as possible, interfering with Logan with his height and arm span. If Logan guessed correctly, Kevin Love's big man was just a cover to force Logan to change his dribble route. After all, his size was there, and you couldn't jump over Kevin Love's head. As long as Kevin Love's success in forcing Logan to change his dribble route, the rear of LeBron James could catch up at any time, forming a tendency to pinch and be caught by LeBron James, which would be very bad for Logan. And Logan knew that the real defenders were still lurking behind Kevin Love. That is the current number 2 leader of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who has gained everyone's trust in the first place. I saw that Logan's footsteps did not stop for a moment, and suddenly, he made a back movement in front of Kevin Love, facing Kevin Love. Kevin Love, stunned, had no idea what Logan was going to do. Because, generally, only when the inside player is ready to play a backside single, he will do this action. The first is to use the body to protect his ball from being snatched by the other party. The second is that you can hide your dribbling action and not be seen by the other party, so that the action is more hidden. But Logan turned his back at this moment. What was he going to do, Kevin Love? It's not an inside line, there's no basket. Kevin Love's is a big man, but here, you don't need any back-to-back singles skills. Moreover, Rogan's back is not a back that stops, but the back of a fast march, just like a high-speed skater doing a slalom while traveling. This action is actually easy to be judged as a step, and it is also because Rogan's technology is too good and too powerful, so it is not judged to be a step. However, this action made Kevin Love's face confused, completely unaware of the answer. However, the answer was quickly available, and at the moment when Logan turned around, he suddenly threw the ball directly backhand, and the ball passed under his crotch. At this time, Kevin Love's efforts to open his hands and feet and expand his defensive area to defend Rogan, his crotch is empty. Rogan's crotch neutral, and Kevin Love's crotch neutral, are in a straight line. So the ball also unceremoniously passed through Kevin Love's crotch gap. Since Logan suddenly turned his back in the middle of the march, Kevin Love, there was no way to see Logan's passing action, and there was nothing he could do about the ball. At this time, Logan turned back with another quick turn, moving as fast as lightning. The whole process, he did not stop at all, back, turn, and the action of throwing the ball under the crotch, almost at the same time, only between the electric light stone fire, he completed such a difficult and complex action. Logan whistled like the wind and swept straight past Kevin Love's right, more than doubling the speed. At the same time as he put on Kevin Love's back, he received one thing, and that was the basketball he had just thrown. The ball, as if it had eyes, made a bend after bouncing off the ground, and when it bounced up, the trajectory of the ball changed. The ball bounced to the right, and Rogan, who broke through to the right, caused the ball to eventually return to Logan's hands. Oh my God! In ESPN's broadcast room, Shaq O'Neal couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this what humans can do? Oh my God!" Although Charles Barkley was really dissatisfied with Logan, he also had to admire the difficulty of the ball. How do I describe this ball? Even Michael Jordan can't do such a move. They are all top basketball superstars, and when such a superb pass appears on the spot, of course, they will still put aside all prejudices and openly praise the greatness of the ball. In this respect, Charles Barkley is much better than another legendary superstar, Smiling Assassin Thomas. Smile Assassin Thomas missed the Olympics because of Michael Jordan, so he slandered Michael Jordan all the time, saying that it was easy to defend Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was just a second-rate star by his teammates. Charles Barkley's heart was obviously much broader. At this moment, in the broadcast room of the Dragon Kingdom, someone described the ball for Charles Barkley. This person, actually Jean Reasonable Guidance. Oh my God! Jean Reasonable exclaimed loudly, "All this is so perfect, just like Rogan," passing the ball to himself half a second later. Episode 135. Know that this line should not have appeared here. This line originally belonged to the UEFA Champions League with a slightly lower timeline. This line belongs to a man named Bale. This Bale, of course, is not the adventurous Bale who even eats caterpillars, but Real Madrid team boss winger Bale. In the Logan history line, the European Champions League final, Real Madrid's superstar Bale once performed a shocking stunt of the human ball. At that time, Bale was carrying the ball on the sideline, facing the defense of the opposing defender, and if he could break through, there was a very wide open ground in front of him, and Bale could do whatever he wanted, even directly facing the opposing goalkeeper. At this time, Bale's personal performance began. He first took the ball one by one, kicking it far away from his own and the opposing defender's body, and then he began to forcibly overtake on the side, directly using his speed to force his way through the opposing defender. The opposing defender even grabbed the belt, but even Bale's jersey could not be touched, and in the end, Bale actually caught up with the ball that was swept out with his own speed. The next thing everyone knows, Bale scored with an easy shot in front of the goalkeeper, a goal that broke the deadlock and laid a good foundation for Real Madrid's subsequent victory. At the time, the shot was hailed as one of the most iconic shots of the year, and many people exclaimed that Bale had passed the ball to himself half a second later. At the moment, Logan was doing exactly the same thing as Bale. No, what he did was nothing but greater than Bale's. The football field, with an extremely wide space, is theoretically going to do this. As long as you have super strong speed, and enough room to play, the players are extremely fast, it is still easy to do. Especially in one-on-one situations, as long as you are fast enough, the opposing players will not even be able to touch your autumn clothes. But the situation on the basketball court is completely different. The space on the basketball court is extremely small, and the player's body contact is extremely large, and if you want to directly divide the ball, you must not only have a speed beyond ordinary people, but also risk injury. Because even if the opposing player does not foul, when you break through, it is inevitable that you will collide with the body of the opposing player, and you will still be injured if you bump into the opposing player too fast. Moreover, this kind of action is equivalent to using the other party as a background board completely, which is easy to be retaliated against by the opposing players. At this moment, this kind of thing happened. Kevin Love suffered such humiliation, and he was also anxious. He was directly a backhand to catch Logan. You know, Kevin Love is definitely not a violent and wild player, and his performance on the field is still very gentlemanly. And Logan is moving at high speed. He casually grabs Logan with his backhand. If he pulls Logan and pulls it, it is likely to cause Logan to be injured in the high-speed travel. Being able to force Kevin Love to this crazy point shows that Logan's technology has been used to the extreme. However, even on such a small basketball court, Logan can still move in and out as freely as the clouds. Logan only made a slight dodge move, not even stopping. Kevin Love's crazy backhand grabbed, it was completely lost. He could not stop Logan's half-point forward. In front of Logan's eyes, only the last defensive player remained. Theoretically, there were two more defensive players, but Tristan Thompson had already given up on defending Logan, and he ran back to the inside to protect the frame, knowing that in case Logan missed, he still had hope of grabbing a rebound. At this moment, the task of blocking is all entrusted to Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler, sure enough, like a huge stone statue, is in Logan's way, and he has expected that Logan will still be able to break through Kevin Love. Over there, LeBron James had gotten rid of D'Angelo Russell's entanglement and was struggling to catch up and try to defend Logan. Jimmy Butler had hope in his eyes that if he could make a two-man pinch with LeBron James, he should be able to intercept Logan's ball. If it's just yourself, then you're foul. Yes, Jimmy Butler did this. His defense is not dirty, but it is a true iron-blooded style, and Jimmy Butler will not hesitate to give a foul to prevent even one ball from coming down. Logan sneered, and suddenly, as he was on the way, he dribbled the ball straight to the back and made a crotch dribble behind his back. This action was made, and Jimmy Butler only felt a flower in front of his eyes. To know that the back crotch dribble this action, if you are in the same place or when vacating the air, do this kind of action is not very easy, and you do this action in the middle of a fast march, a careless, you will trip over the ball and fall injured. And a fall at such a high speed, as light as Paul George in the Logan history line twisted the leg bone, heavy like DeMarcus Cousins or Klay Thompson in the Logan history line, the Achilles tendon ruptured or the cruciate ligament injury, the career is almost scrapped. But Logan has this confidence, and he is doing all kinds of unbelievable actions with the blessing of his own field. After dribbling from his crotch, Logan quickly flashed to the left, but strangely, the ball seemed to be Logan's uncontrollable, detached from Logan's right hand, and swirled around Logan's fingertips. Jimmy Butler was dazzled. After dribbling on his crotch, the ball had left Logan's hand, and Logan's body was in two directions, whether he was going to defend the ball or defend people. It was in the midst of this hesitation that Logan's speed was so fast that he had already posted it in front of Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler made a decisive judgment, that is, leave Logan alone and grab the ball that is out of Logan's control of movement. As a result, this judgment led to Jimmy Butler. The man did not defend, the ball did not defend. Because Jimmy Butler almost straight at that ball. However, the ball appeared to be out of the control of Logan's palm, but in reality, the ball was spinning above Logan's fingertips. Logan, can you actually use your fingertips to control the movement of the ball? This is already a miracle. Even Logan himself felt very proud. This is the power of the zone. With the support of the zone field, not only can make a variety of irregular shots, but also can make a variety of irregular dribbles. Just as Jimmy Butler pounced, Logan's fingertip poked as if by magic, and the trajectory of the ball changed instantly. Episode 136. This is impressive, and another person has split the ball. Logan was another man who had split the ball, and this time, he stabbed it straight under Jimmy Butler's armpit. Jimmy Butler was already killing the red eye, and seeing that the ball was out of control, he actually used a scorpion tail swinging action directly, trying to trip Logan with his legs. Where could Logan not have predicted Jimmy Butler's movements? He was already ready. While poking the ball out, Logan himself took a leap and stepped over Jimmy Butler as he stretched out to trip over his leg. Then, the ball was perfectly received again. At this point, the Cleveland Cavaliers' defense line was directly given a shred by Logan. Kevin Love, Jr. Smith, and Jimmy Butler were all left behind by Logan, while LeBron James, despite his hard work, couldn't catch up. At the moment, the Cleveland Cavaliers inside the line, there is only one Tristan Thompson used to protect the frame. Tristan Thompson saw that Logan's momentum of passing 5 levels and 6 generals dared to come out, directly on the inside line. Logan made a dragon into the inside line, directly in front of the free throw line, and took off the dunk. But at this time, Tristan Thompson, who did not dare to come out, actually came out, and he directly took a strong jump, trying to stop Logan at all costs. This action actually surprised Logan. Committing a foul while shooting himself, that doesn't make any sense, and might give Logan a 2+1. You know, Rogan's free throw shooting percentage, that's close to 100%. Except for those that he deliberately threw away, grabbed rebounds to make up for the basket and played 4 points, and played 5 points, all other free throws, Logan was able to make a free throw. Of course, this action Rogan is not afraid, but it also makes Rogan's footsteps of passing 5 levels in a row and slashing 6 generals to a halt for a while. In the midst of this stagnation, someone had already killed him. Suddenly, a black shadow slapped Logan directly on the arm and took the ball away. The action was so fierce that he went straight to Logan's arm, not playing at all. It's Jimmy Butler, and I don't know when. Jimmy Butler has quietly returned to the defensive position, directly betting on a ferocious foul and taking the racket away. The foul was well worth it, because Tristan Thompson's attack, Logan had not yet started shooting, and the foul would not have been awarded 2 free throws. It seems that Tristan Thompson's attack was also at the behest of Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler deserves to be an Iron Man, and after committing such a vicious foul, the soft foot does not even mean to apologize to Logan, and simply walks away proudly. D'Angelo Russell immediately went up to Jimmy Butler's theory, because Jimmy Butler's foul was so vicious that Logan had a red mark on his hand. Instead, Logan stops his little brother's behavior, and it doesn't make sense to fight with Jimmy Butler. Logan smiled and said, "Rest assured, he just turned my 2-pointer into a 3-pointer. D'Angelo Russell's eyes lit up, and Logan made a boo gesture to him. He directed D'Angelo Russell to serve the ball out of bounds, and then Logan got the ball and went straight to the 3-point line to face the LeBron James defense again. In the ESPN studio, Shaq O'Neal and Charles Barkley screamed at Jimmy Butler's final ferocious foul. Then, Shaq O'Neal and Charles Barkley were both strangled and lamented, and a good one-dragon layup of 4 people in a row was ruined by Jimmy Butler's foul on the scenery. The two sighed together for a while, before they looked into each other's eyes and snorted from their noses. After a brief moment of mutual sighing, the two men reverted to their old and dead attitudes. Ahem. Charles Barkley returned to normalcy and said, "Rogan, isn't there anything remarkable about it? A foul can get it done." Shaq O'Neal was angry and funny. "You didn't say that just now. You obviously said that Logan's technology is nothing short of world-shattering. The real top players should let the other side not let the foul go." Charles Barkley said eloquently, "Logan is still 1 level away from being a real top player." Shaq O'Neal was funny and angry to hear. It was fucking farting, and for the first time I'd heard there were players who couldn't get fouled. Even Michael Jordan faced the siege and suppression of the Detroit Pistons bad boy core, and he was beaten and bloodied. Daly, the head coach of the Detroit Pistons at the time, directly and openly shouted, "I want Michael Jordan to see red. You yourself were not torn by Karl Malone's elbow and caused the Houston Rockets' big three to fail to win the championship in the end. Fouls could not be committed. You really said better than you sang." In the broadcast room of the Dragon Kingdom, Jean Lizzie also screamed angrily, saying, "This kind of shameless foul, this is a crime should be punished immediately." Scott Pippen pondered and said, "Jimmy Butler's foul is really accurate, and today's cooperation with LeBron James can be said to complement each other, and Logan is going to be in big trouble today." Jean Lilly also regained his composure, saying, "I didn't expect that LeBron James and Jimmy Butler would be able to integrate into the team so quickly." Scott Pippen thought to himself, "I didn't expect LeBron James to be so daring to give up power. At the moment, the clear thing in commanding the team is Jimmy Butler." In the audience, Stephen Curry, curled up in his trench coat, suddenly grinned and said, "Meow, where did LeBron James pick up such a treasure?" Klay Thompson also frowned and said, "This year, our opponents, the strength has escalated again. I thought that after taking Kyrie Irving, they are going to collapse." Klay Thompson originally thought that the team picked up a Kevin Durant out of thin air, should be invincible in the world, did not expect that the other side added a function is not worse than LeBron James Jimmy Butler. This game also has a fight. Our opponent. Stephen Curry showed a strange expression and said, "Who are you talking about, the Los Angeles Lakers, or the Cleveland Cavaliers, boss?" Klay Thompson was completely dismissive of Stephen Curry's words, saying, "You don't think the Los Angeles Lakers can really pose a threat to us? 20 consecutive wins. The Houston Rockets of that year also played 22 consecutive wins." Episode 137. Klay Thompson's words are actually the general view of the league. The league generally believes that the Los Angeles Lakers only have one strong point, and the playoff experience is insufficient, and it is impossible to win the championship. You say that Dirk Nowitzki won the championship single core? Dirk Nowitzki did not know how many years of playoffs he had playoffs, and at that time, he was surrounded by the old league demon Jason Kidd, the old shooter PG Stojakovic, and the boxing king Tyson Chandler, and other people helped. Jason Kidd has been the best defensive team in his career and times, and boxing champion Tyson Chandler is also a defensive team, and he has a lot of playoff experience. The strength of these people is obviously a few streets away from the current D'Angelo Russell, Larry Nance Jr., and Ingram. Stephen Curry listened to this and responded with a faint sneer. The Golden State Warriors in the first year, no one believes that we can win the championship. Hearing this, Klay Thompson was utterly silent. That's right, even when the Golden State Warriors were ranked first in the league in the first year, no one was optimistic that they would eventually win the championship. Even after they made it through the cracks and eliminated the mighty San Antonio Spurs, no one believed they could win the championship. But they did it anyway, and this scene is very similar to the current Los Angeles Lakers. Even now, though, there are still doubts that the Golden State Warriors picked up the bargain, because Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, of the Cleveland Cavaliers at that time, were injured. But whether we're number 1 in the West or second in the West, Stephen Curry said, we will not meet the Los Angeles Lakers until the Western Conference Finals of the playoffs, and if we win, the final opponent should be the Cleveland Cavaliers, so let's watch the game and wait for the result. Only to see that on the field, Jimmy Butler waited until LeBron James returned to the defense, and said to LeBron James, look, I helped you get it done, and also, your return defense is really slow, you are now the old emperor. Having said that, Jimmy Butler looked at LeBron James with a suspicious look. LeBron James apparently slowed down the return of the defense at the end, as if he had already guessed that Jimmy Butler would foul. Jimmy Butler felt that although it seemed that the executioners were all themselves, as if they were themselves, sharing the power of LeBron James, in fact, LeBron James had already predicted all his actions, and he was just a remote puppet. LeBron James grinned and said, but he said you just turned 2 points into 3 points. Jimmy Butler also laughed and said, whether 2 points will become 3 points, that's your business, and his opposing defender is you. Logan also patiently waited until they finished speaking before attacking with the ball. LeBron James is still conscientious, and this time, instead of emptying Logan's three-pointer, he took the initiative to come forward and entangle Logan. Logan made 2 simple false moves, and Emperor LeBron James also responded, and these 2 false actions did not shake the Emperor away. This time, LeBron James suddenly had a strange feeling again, Logan's whole body, it was a great light. He couldn't help but mutter, here we go again. Just now, when Logan broke through 4 people with a dragon in a row with shocking movements, his whole body also emitted such a light. In the mind of LeBron James, he understood this as a special kind of momentum. He knew that after this momentum was raised, the shooting accuracy of Logan's actions would become unpredictable. At this time, Stephen Curry in the audience also suddenly opened his eyes, and he murmured, seamless? No, this is basketball, then this is. Finally, Stephen Curry searched his head for a long time and slowly spat out a word, zone. After saying that, Stephen Curry was relieved and paralyzed his body on the backrest. What is zone? Klay Thompson asked Stephen Curry, the comic book poisoning patient Stephen Curry, who often spits out some very strange nouns from his mouth. Zone. Stephen Curry said word for word, it's the kind of thing that allows you to do all the things that can't be done. Stephen Curry, a comic book enthusiast, has finally found the best adjective for Logan's current state, and of course, he won't know that Logan is really the system that gave him the ability to zone. Yes, neither LeBron James nor Stephen Curry felt wrong, and Logan had now exploited the power of the zone to the limit. Even at this time, he did not have the system of Shintaro Midorima to escort him, which could ensure that every shot he made was accurately hit. However, he has a zone that allows for more accurate shots. What is the 3-point line? Strictly speaking, the 3-point line is only a 2-point line that is farther away, that is, an extension of a 2-point line. As long as the shooting rate is enough, the 2-point line can shoot the ball, the 3-point line can also shoot, and even the outside of the 3-point line can shoot. Seeing that Logan didn't say a word, he immediately dribbled the ball with a crotch and made a forward thrust. Logan made this move, and LeBron James of course had to back off a little bit to defend Logan's breakthrough. Then Logan's footsteps crossed slightly, and he quickly jumped backwards while throwing the ball in his hand. This is exactly the technique rarely seen in this era, retreating to the 3-pointer. LeBron James frowned, and did not jump up to defend at all. To be honest, he did not expect that Logan would use the technique of retreating to the 3-point shot. After all, Logan has never been a 3-point shooter. Pulling back on 3-pointers, there is no way to defend in the front, and he directly directs Tristan Thompson to prepare for rebounds on the inside. At this time, Larry Nance Jr. and Landry were also frantically slotting inwards. Still, it was all useless, and Logan's 3-pointer fell neatly into the net and hollowed it out. There was a moment of silence, and even the Los Angeles Lakers audience forgot to applaud. At the moment, Logan has a total of 6 points, and the problem is that all the 6 points he has scored come from 3-pointers. This is unimaginable in Logan's past inside-based style of play, when Logan became a 3-point master. Logan smiled at Jimmy Butler and said, I said it all, your effort was to turn my 2 points into 3, thank you for the foul. Episode 138. Jimmy Butler listened to Logan's deliberately irritating words and almost spat out blood. It is true that just getting Logan to the basket was a 2-point pointer, but Jimmy Butler forcibly stopped Logan with a foul. Instead, Logan scored a 3-pointer, scored 3 points, and lost a foul himself. This result, however, is not cost-effective. The Los Angeles Lakers, with Logan's 3-pointer, turned the score back to 9-3, and the point difference widened to 6 points. LeBron James came over and tapped Jimmy Butler on the shoulder and said don't care about that. At the same time, he looked at Logan with a puzzled look. Today, Logan's 3-pointers are a bit too much, and at present, Logan's 6 points are all derived from 2 3-pointers. Could it be that Logan is actually a divine 3-pointer? He quickly erased these thoughts from his mind, and the most important thing now was to chase back the point difference. The Cleveland Cavaliers were again sent off bounds by Tristan Thompson, with LeBron James' offense. LeBron James dribbled the ball and quickly arrived at the top of the Los Angeles Lakers' 3-point arc. At this moment, LeBron James can still feel that Logan's body is still surrounded by that mysterious momentum. Rather than defend closely, Logan let go of a half-step away for LeBron James. At this distance, LeBron James has enough room to break through, and at the same time, he can also choose to shoot 3-pointers. Want to cast blue? LeBron James asked himself. Then his answer is no. This state of Logan cannot be messed with, all means except the retreat of 3 points, will be blocked by Logan. LeBron James didn't say a word, and even gave up his proudest breakthrough, directly choosing to pass, passing the ball to Jimmy Butler on the right. The audience booed around, they came to see LeBron James and Logan single-handed, but before it started, it was over. LeBron James directly gave up the head-to-head with Logan, and instead let his teammates decide the winner. The Emperor's face did not change, and the so-called personal honor was something that the Emperor had given up many years ago. After all, the scoring king, a burst, MVP, and other things, the Emperor has not liked to take it. What he needs now is the team's victory, and what is the point of sacrificing some personal data for this? It is obviously unwise to single out the strongest point, and instead of going head-to-head with Logan, it is better to avoid his sharp edge and then attack again. Over there, it's another two-generation Bulls showdown, with Roar Dang defending Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler faced Roden's defense, didn't even look at the opponent, and immediately broke through. His consciousness was very clear, knowing that as long as he slowed down, Logan would immediately make up for it. Roar Dang's performance this season is actually quite okay, but most of it is based on Logan helping him to help defend. Lacking Logan's help at the moment, in the face of an all-star level Jimmy Butler blitz, Roar Dang immediately came to his senses. Roar Dang stumbled and was completely vulnerable to Jimmy Butler's iron-blooded onslaught, and saw that Jimmy Butler was about to break through and make a layup. Inside teammates came to help, and Larry Nance Jr. rushed ahead of Logan and came to make up for it. Larry Nance Jr.'s head is very obvious, his intentions are obvious, and the other side is obviously going to use the breakthrough of the number 2 person Jimmy Butler to attract Logan's defense. If Logan hadn't defended Jimmy Butler, Roar Dang's defensive abilities would have been destroyed by Jimmy Butler. If Logan makes up the game, then Jimmy Butler will look for new opportunities to return the ball to LeBron James, because Logan has lost his position so that no one can limit LeBron James. Now, he knew why Logan took Jimmy Butler very seriously. This person, which is basically another version of LeBron James, is equivalent to saying that the Cleveland Cavaliers used Kyrie Irving to directly exchange Jimmy Butler. If it is before the start of the season, everyone must think that Kyrie Irving for Jimmy Butler is a big loss. After all, Kyrie Irving performed extremely well in the finals last season, as the team's number 2 scorer, invincible, and in the 7th game against Stephen Curry's defense, shot a very critical 3-pointer. This kind of performance makes everyone ignore that Kyrie Irving is the second-to-last big black hole in the league's defensive efficiency, only a little better than Thomas Jr., and the defense is all LeBron James is helping him wipe his ass. At this moment, a pair on the field, Larry Nance Jr. found that Jimmy Butler was much more terrifying than Kyrie Irving. This man is all-round in attack and defense, and the most terrifying thing is that he executes the team's tactics very firmly. Others may have to look at LeBron James's face when they perform tactics, but Jimmy Butler doesn't care about it at all. But there is no way, you can't leave everything to Logan, and the attack of the number 2 person must be stopped by the number 2 person on his side. This number 2 showdown is likely to determine the direction of the game, after all, even if Logan hit LeBron James, but the other pairs were all blown up by the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Los Angeles Lakers still have no way to win. Larry Nance Jr., like the tower, used his massive body to block Jimmy Butler's way. Jimmy Butler didn't hesitate for a moment. After all, he only had to hesitate for a moment, and Logan would come over. Jimmy Butler immediately leaned over Larry Nance Jr. and jumped straight up to shoot. His movements are very agile and completely unaffected by the sheer size of Larry Nance Jr. Larry Nance Jr. saw that the light could not stand and immediately jumped up, trying to interfere with Jimmy Butler's shots. However, this interference did not work. Jimmy Butler was so skilled, he was in the air, and also made a dodge and turn maneuver, easily throwing the ball in. Meanwhile, the referee's whistle sounded and he blew a foul on Larry Nance Jr. Larry Nance Jr. was stunned at first, and then immediately the green tendons on his forehead protruded, and ran to the referee to protest. This is basically a punishment for body hair fouls. No, this penalty is a few points more than a body hair foul. Larry Nance Jr. said to no, I didn't meet Jimmy Butler at all, you said body hair foul, I didn't even touch his body hair. The referee said you violated Jimmy Butler's sponge, no, a cylinder. Episode 139, no wonder Larry Nance Jr. is not used to it, because this rule was just added before, and before the season, there was no such rule. Violation of the cylinder. This is a new rule implemented by the NBA since 2016. Many people complain that this rule is specially tailored for James Harden, so some people call him the Harden rule. Because James Harden likes to foul up the most, many times, he deliberately leans his shooter on people's bodies, so that everyone complains that as long as they touch James Harden's body hair, they will be sentenced to fouls. Unexpectedly, the league intensified, in order to help James Harden, in addition to this so-called cylindrical rule. The essence of this cylindrical rule is, before you encountered James Harden's body hair was considered a foul, now you do not even touch James Harden's body hair, you will be sentenced to foul. This new so-called violation of the cylinder rule, in which the so-called cylinder refers to the cylinder with the player's torso as the bottom of the circle, this cylinder, but includes the airspace above the player's head. In fact, the other parts of the cylinder do not matter, because when you encounter other parts such as the player's torso and arms, it is a foul behavior. The main disputed position refers to the area above the player's head, the airspace. For a simple example, Logan stood with the ball, and LeBron James preemptively put his hand on top of Logan's head to prevent Logan from shooting a three-pointer. Then LeBron James was motionless, and Logan still chose to shoot, and until the end of Logan's shot, LeBron James did not touch Logan. In that case, in the previous rules, this was not a foul, because neither LeBron nor James touched Logan. However, after the new rules were introduced, this was still a foul on LeBron James. Because, although LeBron James did not touch Logan, his behavior violated the airspace vertically above Logan's head, that is, LeBron James violated Logan's cylinder. This penalty is simply very favorable for three-point shooters such as James Harden and Stephen Curry. Because the main scoring method they use is often to jump 3 points in place, at this time, their overhead area is their cylinder, and your cover cannot reach the range above their head. At this time, as long as you touch their hands, even if it is a slight contact, it is all a foul on the cylinder. You don't even touch them, but the covered area reaches the top of their heads, which becomes your foul. As we all know, when normal people shoot, they raise their hands above their heads. As a result, you can almost be convicted of a foul if you try to interfere with the opponent's shot with your hand raised above your head. And if you don't infringe on the opponent's overhead airspace and only defend within your own cylinder range, you have no chance to defend Stephen Curry and James Harden's unpredictable three-pointers. So a lot of people complained there, saying that this rule is specifically for Stephen Curry and James Harden to get MVP settings. For three-point shooters, that's super invincible good. At this moment, Larry Nance Jr. suffered a great loss, and he violated Jimmy Butler's cylinder. Jimmy Butler, who is a man of high league salesmanship, has thought through this new rule. He easily created a cylindrical foul on Larry Nance Jr., and the duel between the number 2 men ended with Jimmy Butler winning. Jimmy Butler started the free throw, and he was calm and relaxed, and he easily hit the ball. You know, Jimmy Barrett's free throw shooting rate is more than 80%. A free throw hit is not a problem for him at all. Steady shooting hits, coupled with steady free throw shots, Jimmy Butler played a 2-and-1 to chase the score 6-9, and the Los Angeles Lakers temporarily led by 3 points. Logan came over to comfort little Larry Nance, who was a little agitated, saying that it didn't matter. "I'll be back in color right away." Logan winked at Larry Nance Jr. Larry Nance Jr. was stunned. How could the boss still use color? Committing a foul on a cylinder is not the only thing he can do. Logan sneered and said, "I can do it too." After all, the league-wide acknowledged foul on the most foul on the cylinder is the Houston Rockets' rising star, James Harden. And the way James Harden committed the foul, Logan has seen countless times in his own history line, which is very familiar. With the zone bonus, Logan can copy James Harden's foul-making stunt at any time. Really? Little Larry Nance was very excited, and when he heard it, he quickly said, "Boss, you have to avenge me, haha, small problem." Logan laughed and motioned for Larry Nance Jr. to send the ball to the bottom line. Larry Nance Jr. sent the bottom line, Logan returned to the ball to attack, he came to the top of the opponent's three-point line, LeBron James still came up to chase Logan. At this moment, Jimmy Butler's footsteps are also moving unconsciously. Slowly dripping, Jimmy Butler had moved away from his own defender, roar dang. Suddenly, Jimmy Butler activates, he makes a quick run, and Logan is caught between the two of them. The two best defenders of the Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron James and Jimmy Butler, came running together to pinch Logan. The audience immediately shouted loudly, "You know, these two people are defensive-level figures." They want to see if Logan can make a difference between the two defensive first-tier players. Suddenly, the audience was excited, and this showdown was obviously much better than Logan's frontal LeBron James. I have to say that LeBron James and Jimmy Butler's double pinch is very powerful. And the division of labor between the two is very clear, LeBron James defends the front, and Jimmy Butler is very smart to drop on Logan's flank, so that he can also defend Logan's dry three-pointers. Logan dribbled the ball twice with ease, and suddenly, he smiled at Jimmy Butler, revealing his white teeth. Jimmy Butler reacted immediately, "Logan, this is the rhythm of shooting three-pointers." Without a moment's hesitation, he immediately jumped up and forcefully capped Logan. Sure enough, Logan was unceremonious, jumped straight up and shot a three-pointer. The problem, this three-pointer is not an ordinary three-pointer, this three-pointer is a backstep three-pointer. Episode 140, neither Jimmy Butler nor LeBron James expected that Logan would actually shoot another three-pointer. And, it's not a regular three-pointer, it's a backlash three-pointer. You know, although the retreat step three-pointer is not a new technology that has just been invented in the NBA now, there is only one person in the league who can use the retreat step three-pointer, that is, Houston Rockets General James Harden. Even when Stephen Curry, the three-point king, used the backstep three-pointer to take a step, he often accidentally walked out of the law. It's a technology that can't be defended at all, but Logan is using it now. And the technology and footsteps used are even more successful than James Harden. If James Harden had watched it live, he would have immediately expressed his shame. LeBron James saw the ball and immediately closed it, knowing that if he pounced any further, he would only get a poor foul. However, a miracle happened, and Logan's beautiful backstep three-pointer was directly pressed down by Jimmy Butler. Logan immediately motioned for Jimmy Butler to foul himself on the cylinder. This ball, the foul, is too obvious. Logan's retreat step of 3 points cannot be stopped at all, because Logan is jumping backwards. Even if your blocking posture is standard, you can't cover Logan. Unless, you can jump a head higher than Logan. How is this possible? Even if you are a kangaroo, there is no way to jump one head higher than Logan. The only way to stop Logan was to put his hand in the cylindrical area above Logan's head in advance so that he could stop Logan. Before Logan could jump, Jimmy Butler had already put his hand on top of Logan's head. But to do so is to commit a foul on the cylinder. Logan told Larry Nance Jr. to fight tooth for tat, and now Logan has done it easily. He is going to deliberately foul Jimmy Butler so that Jimmy Butler can commit 2 fouls in a short period of time. As a result, the whistle did not sound for a long time, and the referee chose to ignore this obvious foul by Jimmy Butler. Logan wondered if this was his home turf. Obviously, Larry Nance Jr.'s violation of Jimmy Butler's cylindrical foul just now is actually conceptually very vague, and the result is that the referee is to sentence Larry Nance Jr. to foul, and Jimmy Butler's obvious violation of the cylinder, the referee does not look at it. Anyway, it was a mistake by Logan anyway, which was blocked by Jimmy Butler. The ball fell directly in front of LeBron James, who immediately instinctively got the ball and began to organize the attack. LeBron James picked up the ball and immediately prepared to organize a quick attack. He used the corner of his eye to see Junior Smith on the right side running fast, and immediately a straight pass, wanted to pass to Junior Smith. As a result, the ball had just passed out, and suddenly a figure inserted directly into LeBron James's passing line, cutting off LeBron James's pass. LeBron James couldn't help but open his mouth. Was it Logan? How could Logan have just been kicked out of Jimmy Butler's cap and then motioned to the referee that Jimmy Butler had fouled him? How could he be in this place in an instant? LeBron James broke into a cold sweat and never dreamed that Logan would be able to cut off this pass. This speed is already against human common sense. In terms of distance, Logan really needs Bolt's speed to barely reach this. But Bolt is a professional track and field athlete, his start, but with the help of a squat starter, how can Logan do it? Oh my god. In ESPN's live broadcast room, Shaq O'Neal opened his mouth wide and couldn't keep it shut, and the speed was really terrible. Shaq O'Neal was once called the NBA's most nimble fat man. Many very nimble defenders known for their speed have been blocked by Shaq O'Neal when they tried to bully him. Even the famous answer Allen Iverson was not spared. However, such a fast defender, Shaq O'Neal has never really seen it. Charles Barkley also sweated a cold sweat on his forehead, and Charles Barkley was also a flexible fat man type, who could score 3 points inside and outside, and he had never seen anyone have such a fast speed. Even if it is the king of the world sprint, Bolt, who constantly breaks the world record, is estimated to be such a speed. In the broadcast room of Dragon Country, Scott Pippen also murmured, "The first time I have seen someone can run so fast." He has more say in this regard, you know. His teammate is the first defender in NBA history, basketball god Michael Jordan. Seeing through everything, except for LeBron James, whose perspective is almost infinite, only Stephen Curry, who is standing in the stands with his hands on his chin. Stephen Curry is also a guard who catches people off guard by the moment, so he is very sensitive to the instantaneous acceleration of this kind of thing. Everything just now was seen by Stephen Curry. Logan fell straight out of bounds after being blocked by a foul on Jimmy Butler. However, while signaling to the referee that Jimmy Butler had fouled, he directly slammed the billboard and started it, a standard crouch start similar to track and field sprinting. If you run in an ordinary posture, even Rogan, there is no way to run so fast. Rogan's strength and reaction speed are really incredible. Stephen Curry muttered, "It's really fast." Klay Thompson stared at the footprints on the billboard, noticed it and whispered, "This guy just stepped on the billboard? No wonder it can run so fast." Stephen Curry just smiled coldly and said, "Can you do it?" Klay Thompson shook his head, of course he couldn't do it. You know, the billboards are only placed on the sidelines, not fixed on the sidelines, and those crouch starters are fixed to the ground. So on TV, you often see some superstars flying out of the stadium. Billboards are smashed in the 7x8 scene, because the billboards are not fixed to the ground. His essence is a moving object. What is not fixed on the ground cannot be fully borrowed. It is no exaggeration to say that Rogan's speed has even surpassed that of Bolt. Stephen Curry said coldly, "The next time we play against him, we have to double pocket him."